How often do you find yourself putting others' needs above your own, especially when it comes to caregiving? My guest today is Susanne White, the founder of Caregiver Warrior. Life took Susanne on a unique journey when she became the caregiver for her parents. This role in her life inspired her to chronicle her experiences and wisdom on caregiverwarrior.com, offering support to others on a similar path. Her dedication to this cause is beautifully written in her recent book, Self Care for Caregivers: A Practical Guide to Caring for You While You Care for Your Loved One. This guide is a testament to Suzanne's commitment to ensuring that caregivers don't lose sight of their own well being. Today, we talk about Suzanne's personal journey and how she came to recognize the importance of self care. We talk about why it's important to check our emotional temperature and highlight the power of self love and its practical implementation. In our conversation, we look at the challenges of caregiver burnout, the art of setting boundaries, and the courage in seeking help when we're overwhelmed. Whether you are in a caregiving role or know someone who is, or just want to better be prepared for the future, this episode offers valuable advice as we share the dual role that every caregiver plays, caring for our loved ones, but also guarding and protecting our own heart and spirit so we can better care for those that we love. This conversation is about the transformational power of self-care and the impact it can have on both caregivers and those that we lovingly support. Here is my interview with Susanne White. Hi, Susanne. I've got your book. I'm holding it up. My listeners can't see, but I'm just thrilled you're here. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm wonderful. I'm a very happy camper. I'm talking to you and we're talking about caregiving and how to help caregivers, and that's my zone. I love
Yes.
to do I have to have these conversations, and
Oh, me
you do such
too.
great work. So let's talk let's to help those caregivers out there.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much. And your book is beautiful, by the way. It
Mm,
is so easy to read. And when I say that, I mean it's digestible, it wasn't overwhelming. And I think when we're in this place of caregiving, the less that's overwhelming, the better. And it's pretty and it's the right size. Like everything about it, I just really liked. So thank you for sending it to me. It was a privilege to read it. You dedicated
oh,
your book to your Mama Claire and Pop Pop. Who are they to you?
yes.
Who are they to you?
Yes, my mama Claire and my pop pop. So they're mom and dad. Mama Claire, we and actually it was Mama Claire and Daddy Frank, but one of the kids who's now like an adult, called my daddy Pop Pop. So he became the infamous Pop Pop. So I dedicated it to my mom and dad because I think without them, I would have never gone. I know without them, I would have never gone on this journey,
Mm.
not only to care for them and other family members, but to develop and share Caregiver Warrior and my thoughts and strategies because I really had to learn a lot in caring for both of them.
So that is what was the premise for you then to write the book. It was your care for them and what you learned. I don't know if we can sum up our caregiving journeys because there's so many facets to it. But what is your personal story as a caregiver and how did you come to recognize how important self-care was to you?
Well, my parents, like many out there, they worked together to sort of hide how they were developing symptoms and they were declining. My mom had early stages of dementia and my dad had heart issues. So they were a team, he was a World War II bombardier pilot hero, and they just had this bond, the two of them, and they were kind of working very hard at hiding from us that they were needing help. And
Mm.
I used to be, I used to get angry about that. And now, in hindsight and doing more work with myself, it's just I realized that they had every right to do that. That was their choice. That's how they chose to deal with it. They had a right to do that. And it all worked out in the end. But my dad, we all flew to Florida for the holidays, and my dad had to be taken off an airplane. And that's the second time he had to be taken off the airplane. The first time was in World War II when he was wounded and he flew the plane home and landed safely. But then he had to be taken off this flight to Florida for the holidays because he was so exhausted, he was really sick. It ended up he had walking pneumonia and heart issues because he was caring for my mom because she was starting to show signs of dementia. So not, and like most of us, not that we don't know that we may be caring for our parents or other family members as they get older, not that we're not aware of that, because I think we all are, but it still comes as a shock when the knock comes on the door. And I basically, when my dad was recuperating, we noticed my mom was like forgetting things and she was confused and she was really nervous without him because he was sleeping a lot. I said to him, we're sitting on the couch one day and I said, Daddy, do you need help? And he said, yes, really fast. Yes, yes, could you help me? And I'm like, okay. And that was it. So I didn't know what I was getting into. I had no idea. But for me, they were my parents, and I had to really show up for them. So we began the journey from that day on. Little did I know what I was getting into.
Isn't that so true? Yes. We don't know. We don't know what it's going to look like. Yeah.
And that's what so many caregivers say to me, which is one of the
Hmm.
reasons I write. And it's like, they don't tell you about this. They don't
Hmm.
tell you about that. I've heard that so many times. They don't tell you this stuff. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm going to try to tell us this stuff.
Hmm.
And I started journaling during my journey and started compiling all this information. And I thought, you know what? This is a blog. Let me start writing. Why not? I have nothing to lose. And Caregiver Warrior kind of took off.
Well, I'm so glad that it did and that you're able to share what you've learned with all of us. We need those voices that we can look to in this space, that we can like grab onto those pillars of hope and encouragement, right? Where we can grab onto those things that give us that light at the end of the tunnel, that encouragement along the way. I'm going to read something from your book that stood out to me. You say, as a caregiver, you are asked to do your best to take care of your loved ones no matter what challenges may come your way. You are called to leave yourself at the door and prepare to put your loved ones' needs first, which you would happen to do so happily and selfishly do. But you probably also tend to abandon your own self care needs as you attentively focus on the well being of your loved one. It's time to start making yourself a priority. Yeah, we put everything kind of
Yes.
on the back burner and then we realize we can't do that anymore. We're drowning. We need that support.
Exactly. And and this is the thing about caregivers, and I do believe we're hardwired to be caregivers. I think, there's always one in the family.
Hmm.
I think we're hardwired. So what happens, I believe, is with the best intentions, people who are caregivers are miracle workers. I mean, they're angels walking on earth. Whenever I'm in a room of caregivers, I feel like I'm in a sacred space because caregivers are amazing people. They really want to serve others and they want to do it perfectly. The problem is that then all thoughts of ourselves go out the window. With all
Hmm.
these wonderful good intentions, we just completely abandon ourselves, which ironically is our downfall because we can't really care for others. We can't go to an empty well with a bucket, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
we want to nurture and care for others, and it's such an honorable thing to do, but we do it at our own expense. And I think that's where I want to try to remind caregivers about balance and about self awareness. It's
Hmm.
really important to know you're not a bad person if you take care of yourself.
Oh my gosh, we need that reminder. Why do you think caregivers do neglect their own self care? And what are those common challenges that prevent us from prioritizing ourselves in it?
Well, I do think it's a heartfelt good intention. I think it's a very overwhelming. I mean, you have someone else's life in your hand. And that's usually what the situation is, one way or the other. So it's a tremendous commitment and it's a big responsibility. And a lot of times we codependently want to fix them
Mm-hmm.
when in fact it's our job. There's a beautiful saying that I just love to quote, which is, we're all just walking each other home. Our job is to support someone, to be there for someone, to live life with them, help them be safe and comfortable. We don't have to fix them. We don't have to change the world, and we can't change the world, and we kind of can't change them.
Yeah.
So, with all these good intentions, of course, we're going to put ourselves in the back burner. By doing that, we hit caregiver burnout, which is inevitable. I believe
Mhm.
every caregiver in the world is going to hit burnout. So, my basic concept is, do you want to hit the wall of that
Mhm.
caregiver burnout going 150 miles an hour? Or do you want to hit it going 20 miles an hour?
Yeah.
And if you take care of yourself and you realize you're allowed to take care of yourself, you're going to hit that wall at 20 instead of 150
Mhm.
miles an hour.
Mhm. Yeah. How do we know if we've hit that burnout? Are there certain signs
Well,
that come
I
up?
don't know.
Ah.
I was hit over the head. I don't know
Mhm.
what happened to you, but I mean, burnout is burnout. It's bad. I mean, I still have this extraordinarily vivid memory of waking up at 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning in my parents' house, just shaking, like
Mm.
physically shaking. I felt like I was going to die. I was so frightened. I was
Mhm.
terrorized. I was traumatized. I was so scared, and I thought the end of the world was going to happen. I thought that I couldn't take care of them,
Mm.
that that something really bad was going to happen on my watch. I
Mhm.
wasn't big enough, strong enough, smart enough, perfect enough to do the duty in front of me or care for them, and that it was all just going to be really bad. I mean, I was so scared and shaking, and I was exhausted. I had maybe slept a couple hours.
Mm.
I wasn't eating properly. I most certainly wasn't exercising. I was so anxious all of the time. My poor nervous system was just like on high alert constantly.
Mhm.
So I didn't have anything at my disposal to soothe myself or make myself feel better.
Yeah.
And that to me, that was my first burnout at 150 miles an hour.
So much all at the same time. Yeah. In your book, you mention the concept of taking your emotional temperature daily.
Mm.
How does this practice benefit us at caregivers? Helps us manage our emotions that all that caregiving can trigger within us.
Well, I kind of love that. It's like take your emotional temperature because you would take their
Mm-hmm.
temperature, right?
Yep.
I mean, we're taking
Yeah.
their vitals
Right.
and checking on them, right? So how about looking at ourselves? So taking our emotional temperature is basically has a lot to do with self-awareness, right? You have to be aware of what's going on with you. And it's difficult, it's extremely difficult, but it's almost like a ritualistic thing. Like you almost have to set the timer on your
Mm-hmm.
phone or wherever and say, how am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? You could even just say, is my stomach in my throat? Are my shoulders up against my ears? And that's amazing how often I
Mm-hmm.
walk around like this. Oh my gosh. So just to sort of notice and take your emotional temperature and say, how am I doing? I've asked
Mm-hmm.
them 14 times already how they're doing. How am I doing? And just to kind of take that temperature and say, let me be self aware. And I love, there's a wonderful little ritual called halt. So I basically say, take your temperature and halt,
Mm-hmm.
which is hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. So you halt and say, am I hungry? Eat a little something. Am I angry? You have to process that or be aware of it to start to process that. Am I lonely? Pick the phone up and talk to someone, share what you're going through. And am I tired? Go take 5. I know it's hard to take naps. I know it's hard to sleep, but you're allowed to go for 5 minutes. I mean, if you physically can do that and your loved one can be left alone for 5 minutes. And if they can't be, get somebody to come over
Mm-hmm.
while you rest a little bit. So you halt, take your temperature and halt and take care of the four things. It's so simple. It's so hard to do, but you have to make the space to do it.
Yeah, you talk about, your shoulders up to your ears. I do that all the time, and I have to tell myself, I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, just take, relax, unclench your
Yeah,
shoulders, But it's so interesting that if we're not paying attention to our bodies and where our thoughts are, that we can easily just be going in, automatic pilot of feeling so anxious and uptight, right? When we need to just take that moment and pause and reflect and gauge where are we at? What do we need to do for ourselves? Absolutely.
exactly. And,
Absolutely.
and the thing that's so interesting to me is that with all of this that I know and all my experience and strategy, I can still shoulders and they're up by my ears. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's like it's
Mm-hmm.
progress, not perfection. It's
Right.
a constant challenge, even to this day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's no quick fixes on
Mm-hmm.
any of this.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing fixes anything permanently or automatically. This is an ongoing, habitual journey we have to go on to with ourselves,
Yeah.
and we have to watch ourselves all the time. It's,
Mm-hmm.
we can never, we have to be really diligent, and we have to get in there and dig deep and continue to do it. If it takes 15 times a day, you have to do that and remind yourself.
Well, you say the ongoing, and I think you use the term in the book, the caregiving marathon. It's definitely not a sprint. It is, it is quite certainly a marathon. And with that, to be able to sustain that, right? Like even running a marathon, you have to train and build your endurance and have the right nutrition and the right water intake and all the things that and the mindset, right? So all the things that go into that. So it to your point, it's so true that it's not a quick fix, and it's absolutely that progress over perfection, that there is that time. And maybe that's part of it is having our mindset shift a little bit to know that, okay, we're going to might be in this for a little bit, but what can we do to sustain our physical and mental health while we are in this marathon of caregiving?
Exactly, and I love that whole reframe idea,
Mm,
the reframing it to get back to what I'm saying. I think caregivers are sacred individuals. I mean, I think
mhm,
the universe blesses us. The
mhm,
universe does not want us to suffer. That's my personal belief system, but I see that in caregivers. In other words, we
mhm.
have to really, really drive home, and again, constantly and consistently, that we deserve to feel as good as we can on this marathon, that we're doing sacred work. We're serving others. We need to serve ourselves. And they don't want us not to serve ourselves. I have this great story where I always wanted to ride horses. So then the universe helped me in that there was a barn right near my parents' house. And I took out an hour and a half on Sunday mornings, maybe 2 hours tops. And
Mhm.
I found a barn, and I found this barn, and I went and I rode horses around with a group of women, all of whom turned out to be caregiving someone.
Wow.
Wow. And we would talk and cry and laugh
Mhm,
for that time with the horses. And then I would go
mhm,
back to my parents' apartment,
mhm,
and my dad would be waiting at the door for me.
mm.
Tell me all about the horse. How'd it
Oh.
go today? What did he do? What did Karen say? Do you know what I mean?
Mhm,
They were so happy that I was doing something for me,
mhm.
because they see me running around. They see that I'm doing so much. They don't want to see me be miserable or upset or hurt.
They want you to have that joy too. Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And why make them worry about us?
Mhm,
That's
mhm,
mean. So reframing the fact that we deserve, not only for ourselves, but for them, we deserve to be at optimal peak performance level, which in caregiving, that's difficult because,
mhm.
I think our adrenals will never be the same. But I mean, we need, right? We need to
Mhm,
do everything we can to be in peak shape. And if
mhm,
that means we're getting 5 hours worth of sleep instead of four every night, that's a big deal. That's a
mhm.
step forward.
Yeah, step forward. So for people that feel guilty about that, or even, if that shame creeps in, what advice do you have for those caregivers to overcome some of those emotions?
It's, and the shame word, guilt and shame, misplaced guilt and shame. And I understand it because I feel it. I
Mm-hmm.
still feel it to this day about certain things that I did during my caregiving journey. Guilt and shame has no place in our lives. I mean, unless we've done something horrific, guilt is and shame has absolutely no value for us. And yet it comes up for us all the time. So, one of the things that I do for myself is when I start to feel it, and I tend to feel it in my stomach, I have to be aware,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what's going on? It's like an underlying thing. It's like,
Right.
something's wrong. You never quite know what it is until you start poking around a little bit. I'm like, I feel really guilty about that. I remind myself of all the great things my mom or dad said to me, or another family member said to me, things that I've done right, things that were successful, all my good intentions, that I know I'm a good person, that I'm doing the best I can, and to just sort of have this inner dialogue to get rid of a positive inner dialogue, to
Mhm.
get rid of that judge and critic in there that's saying, oh, we can't do that and that's wrong. And oh, is that the right decision? Did I do the right thing? Yes, 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 yes. Just about everything I talk about comes down to it's okay, and be kind to yourself about
Mhm.
it. It's all okay. Like, how important is it? Just, you're doing great. And I think it's that kind of conversation, which is truth. Your heart feels the truth around that.
Yeah.
Shame and guilt are liars and
Mhm.
cheaters.
Which really leads us into self love when you think about it, that inner dialogue. And you talk about how that's really the foundation of empowered caregiving. How can we practice that self love and that kindness towards ourselves on a daily basis? What does that look like?
It looks like a challenge every day. That's what it looks like. And that's what I want to remind everybody,
Mhm.
that we're going to have days where maybe we're more rested, or we're eating better, or we've had a good day, and it's easier for us to say, hey, you're doing a great job, whether it's in the mirror and when you wake up, or at the end of the day, hey, you're doing a great job. I love you. It's great. God bless you. And, your angels are here. Whatever works for you, it's something we have to approach every day. And every day we're going to doubt ourselves, imposter syndrome, doubt, guilt, shame. All these things are part of life, and most certainly part of caregiving.
Mhm.
And they're hard and they're challenging, but we have to beat them back. And whatever way we need to beat them back, whether it's writing positive things down about yourself, or journaling, perhaps it's, picking up the phone and talking to another caregiver. That's a really big one.
Mm.
Picking up the phone and talk to anybody you trust and support you. But if you can find another caregiver and connect with them, wow, that's golden.
Yeah,
That's like a blessing, right? Because the first thing they're going to do is say to you is, "Oh my gosh, you're doing a great job. I did the same thing."
totally. Yeah.
So, right? I mean, sharing, it's like, you understand,
Mhm.
it's a language. It's a whole language, caregiver to caregiver. So make that phone call. Do something, breathe, ask your inner self for guidance, whatever you believe in. Um, do spiritual practice, meditate, even sit and have your favorite ice cream. Like, do it. Have the cookie, buy the shoes, whatever it
Those
is.
glimpses, yeah.
Just to stop and just listen to what we're saying and say, wow, I need to be kinder to myself. I did 15 amazing things today. I did one amazing thing today because I showed up. A lot of people don't show up. You get the prize just for showing up.
In your book, you offer 100, more than 100 activities and suggestions about how we can rejuvenate, recharge. What are some examples of those activities that we can do, right? When we need those practical ways of, okay, what are some of those ways we can do that?
And the reason I wrote so many, was because that's what my toolbox looks like. Because,
Mm,
perhaps 135 of them don't work,
mm.
like on a given day.
Yeah, maybe the one
Like,
does.
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
have to keep going for that toolbox.
Hmm.
So, for me, finding something that I love, like riding the horses and finding a way to take care of myself and do that, that was a major thing for me. And it was interesting because there was always somebody around to visit with my parents if I wasn't there, no matter how far into dementia my mom got. Things like, having snacks nearby, right? If we feed them and we don't eat,
Mm.
I would be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think, oh my gosh, I didn't eat anything. So having snacks or my favorite foods, hopefully healthy foods in the house that are available to me, so I don't have to think about it. Like your favorite power bar. The other thing is just being kind about it. Instead of beating yourself up or second guessing yourself, give yourself a break. Like, just say to yourself, I need a break. I want to give myself a break. I'm doing the best I can.
Mm.
Making sure you have a tribe or a group of people that you can lean on. That was really important for me.
Mm-hmm.
I made sure, it took me a while, but by the end of my journey, I had a group of people that I can't even begin to tell you how much they helped me. Asking for help. That was a really big one for me. I'm going to be writing a blog very shortly that's like, I refused to ask for help until the day felt like I was going to die. you know, it was horrible for me to ask for help because that's not my personality. I had to slowly but surely learn
Mm-hmm.
to ask for help. That's probably one of the biggest ones.
Oh my gosh, it's huge because a lot of us are really uncomfortable doing that. Yeah, but we need it. We can't do it by ourselves.
No,
Mm-hmm.
caregiving takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
That's the law. So if we have one takeaway, it's caregiving takes a village. We are built to do things in community, simple things. We're built to do things in community, whatever your community is. Why would you think you could do caregiving alone? We can't do anything alone.
Right.
We're built. We come here built to be part of a community. So asking for help or getting support is our job.
It
It's
is.
just as important. It's our job. Ask for help, get a new perspective, cry, get to somebody and just cry on the phone.
When you think of it, we ask for help and we receive quite a bit of help when our kids are smaller, right? Or when we're in that child caring role. And there are obvious differences, but we are made for community and we are made for that support where you've got systems that you can call on as you're caring for people, regardless of the age, whatever that may be. That is a piece of it, but it's so much more widely accepted or part of the narrative that we have support in our child caring versus our older adults and our loved ones. Yeah.
Yes, and I think and that's a social interaction thing. That
Mm-hmm.
society tells us that.
Mm-hmm.
That and that's it's a very interesting and a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Because we learn or we are taught that it's appropriate to ask for help when dealing with young children.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scenario that we get support for, that we're allowed to do it at that time in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So we learn that. That's taught to us. As we get older, for some reason, society starts judging us or
Mm-hmm.
starts telling us or abandons us, and we're still listening. We're still listening for that reinforcement or that judgment. And it's a shame because as the kids get older, as we get older, as those we care for get older, we need more help. Things are more challenging. We get help at those times when we
Yeah.
need it the most. And I really do think we come to caregiving with this preconceived notion of three things. I'm going to do it perfectly, I'm going to do it alone, and I'm going to do it immediately. Who made those rules? Who did that to
I
us?
know. It's so not
Nobody.
fair. Yes. Oh.
Got to get rid of those rules because it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
We showing up is great. You're doing the best
Mm-hmm.
you can. You most certainly can't do it alone. We're built in community,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no immediacy other than crisis reaction
Mm-hmm.
in caregiving.
Yeah. Would you say that asking for help is the most transformative aspect of practicing self care? Or are there other pieces of that that you would pull in that can like positively impact the quality of care we provide?
I think it's a very compound. A very. I
Mm-hmm.
think our emotions get compound, so I think big. It's a very big situation that we're in. I think
Mm-hmm.
asking for help is absolutely one of the most important things we can do for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think self-awareness is really, really important
Mm-hmm.
because and self-love and self-care. I think
Mm-hmm.
they all kind of work together.
They do.
You can't ask for help if you're not aware of the fact you have a difficult time doing it and
Yeah.
you need to learn how to ask for help, right?
Mm-hmm. And that you
And
love
if we're
yourself enough to ask for the help, right? Yeah, it's absolutely cyclical like that.
it is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it makes it so challenging for us because we're so tired and exhausted and overwhelmed and
Mm-hmm.
frightened. And we want to make sure that those we serve and care for and love are safe and sound.
Mhm.
Then you put on top of that the fact that we have to take the time and energy to take care of ourselves on top of it. It's almost overwhelming to the point of no return.
Mhm.
However, I think the more we prioritize ourselves, the more we can handle the overwhelm and this commitment and responsibility we take on.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's like being an athlete, you
Mhm.
can't, and again, you can't go to an empty well and get any kind of water
Yeah. You
to
can't.
take back to somebody else.
I really loved how your book was broken up into different sections and how you categorize the self care. So, self care for your emotions, self care for your body, self care for your spirit and soul, and practical self care. And when I was reading through it, I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes so much sense that it is those different components of it. Because when we're looking at the different ways we can pour into ourselves, they vary, right? They vary whether it's okay going for a walk. That's physical, but it also feeds our spirit. But it was really, I felt cool to see the breakdown of how those different components work together, but then identifying where they fall into those categories. How did you decide to come up with the putting them, in the book this way?
Well, it's really such a big topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, everything is mind, body, soul.
Mm-hmm.
We're these very complex little computers walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And I think caregiving is very complex and intense. And we kind of wanted to break down and make it easy to explain how all these moving parts work together.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like whack the weasel kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, with mind, body, spirit, and then the practical part of it, because I didn't want to, I wanted to offer, practical things like, powers of attorney and legal documents and things like that. But I really wanted to show caregivers that their body needs to be nourished,
Mm-hmm.
right? Their soul needs to be nourished. And we need to be aware that our emotional state needs to be protected and nourished. And we need to make sure that we're aware of what we need to do to process our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of all made, it was like different parts of a big whole that if we really work on, we can sustain our caregiving journey and feel empowered instead of miserable. I was miserable before I started finding these strategies and really looking at myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, everyone needs to read it because you have so many ideas and suggestions and things I hadn't even thought about. I was like, oh my gosh, I think
Oh,
we go to some big ones, but I really took some notes. I was thinking about how, and I'm not in a caregiving role with an older adult at the moment. I have been, I will be, but at the moment I'm not. But it was still even things I'm like, oh my gosh, I could totally implement that. Just self care in my life in general, right? So we have the stress of everything going on. So it's truly practical for all people. There are different ways and techniques. And do you have any favorite things when caregivers reach out to you and they're like, I am really in it, I'm really struggling right now, that you tend to recommend to them of being some good self care practices?
everybody's so different. I always
Mm-hmm.
say that we're, on the same journey, but we take different paths,
Mm.
and everybody's so different. I think for me, it comes down to whatever it is, it's okay.
Yeah, so true.
Whatever it is, it's okay. Kind to yourself around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of the most important things for me are the times when we're able to be aware that like for instance, we compound our emotions. So I used to feel guilty about feeling guilty, or I used to be angry at myself because I got angry. Do you know what I mean? Or I used to be
Mm-hmm.
really anxious about my anxiety. So we sort of compound. And I think that depending on what the individual caregiver says or needs, the bottom line of it is that just stop. stop for a minute and just, what are you feeling? If you have to, like, what's going on? Why was I talking to my mom like that? Why was she? And my mom and I did not get along at all for years. And this journey was amazing for me because I healed that relationship, but I did it by being self-aware. She wasn't going to change.
Mm,
I had to change.
mm,
So I think quite often we can, especially if you're caring for family members, we all have baggage. We all have some baggage. So we have to learn to kind of leave the baggage at the door, but we have to know what's in that bag because most times it comes in the door with us and it sits there in the room when we're right.
oh,
So I
yep.
think my whole thing with self-awareness and being in touch with what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
quite often I had to really learn to say, why is that making me so mad? Or why is that making me so scared? Or why is that making me so shameful? By asking those questions. And it's hard. It's hard to, but I mean, leaving those questions open didn't help me. I had to understand what was going on for me.
Mm-hmm.
And what didn't happen overnight, and I'm still working on it years and years later. But just asking those questions, I think that if we get down to what is really sticking in your throat right now, what
Mm-hmm.
hurts you the most, and whatever hurts you the most, that's the first thing we have to try to take care of.
Yeah, that's where we need to do the work, right? Yeah. I like the reflection, and it's ongoing and it's constantly evolving, and family dynamics play a huge role in that because we all have them, right? There's different relationship dynamics and all of that. How have you found, and I know you talk about this a little bit too, is how have you found setting boundaries is essential to preserving some of that energy? There's also probably a lot of self awareness and reflecting in that aspect, also.
Yes, in that I had to become aware, and I'm aware and have been aware for quite some time. So it wasn't a total surprise to me, but I want to say yes to everybody and yes to everything. And I want to say it and I want to do it perfectly.
Mm,
As the minute I say no, and no is a complete sentence. That's finding that out was really good. I don't have to over explain it. I just have to say no.
mm-hmm.
Like no is a complete sentence.
That's a
So that was
practice.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was hard, but I don't, you're a caregiver, you're tired, you don't have to explain anything to anybody.
Mm,
But I had to learn that saying yes all the time wasn't helping me and it wasn't helping the people I was around or serving or caring for.
right, right,
I
right.
had to learn that that's too much for me today, or I can't help you with that. I'm doing this instead. And I got more gracious at it
Mm-hmm.
over time. I still have to work
Mm-hmm.
on being gracious about it, but I really can't do that right now. I'm so sorry. I'm really kind of overwhelmed with this, but let me get back to you. What can somebody say to that? But, oh, okay.
Right.
Or let me think about that and I'll get back to you tomorrow because it may be too much for me. And that way you have 24 hours to think, hey, is this serving me?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to do this? Are my parents or my family or my loved one or the person I work for, is this benefiting them and me? Are we both being benefited by me taking on this added thing? Or, my mom was pushy. I mean, that was one of the things. So nothing was ever good enough or fast enough or big enough for her. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to learn that, well, yeah, it is. And I didn't have to be mean spirited about it. We never have to be cruel or mean spirited about it, in my personal opinion.
Right.
We just have to be authentic about it.
I like
And
that.
authenticity, yeah, authenticity carries a lot of weight. When you're saying to somebody, oh my gosh, I just can't do that right now, if they don't hear you, get rid of them. And if it's somebody in your life you're taking care of, and you have to say, I can't do that right now, give me a minute and let me get back to you on that. And if they don't hear that, especially with dementia patients,
Mm-hmm.
walk away if you can and
Mm-hmm.
regroup in the other room. Come back.
We just need to hear it. I think we know some of those things we want to do inside of us, but it helps to hear the encouragement to continue to set the boundary and to say the thing and be authentic and be ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As caregivers read your book and they start their self care journey, what final message or encouragement would you like them to remember throughout this process?
First of all, it's okay. And be kind to yourself about it. That's the first one. And then the second one is you can't do it alone. You can't do it perfectly, and you can't do it all at once. It's really important. This is a journey. That's why I keep using the journey. It's why we call it a journey. This is a journey. It's one step of many, 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 many. And you're doing great. That's the final thing is you're a star. You're an angel walking on earth. You're caring and serving for someone else. It's an honorable, amazing, godlike performance.
That is the best message. And we all need to hear that. So thank you.
You bet.
It's been great to hear your thoughts and your perspective. And it's so hard. We can't cover an entire book within the hour that we have. So everyone's going to need to go pick it up. And it's a book that you can set on your coffee table or nightstand and open a page and have a good reminder of what we can do, or read it through, in one sitting. But it's that style where you can be encouraged every day in small ways to implement that self care and take care of yourself. So, thank you for writing it. Thank you for sharing with us. And I know you came upon this because of your own story, which most of us can relate to because we are all here caring in this way because we have that personal story that really connects it to us.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I wanted to do something that you could pick up and just read one page,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So it was really important for me, and hopefully it'll help, and hopefully people will know they're not crazy and they're not alone, and it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Yeah, you're not alone. Where can we buy the book? Where can we learn more about you?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. Well, my website and blog is caregiverwarrior.com. So a whole bunch of wonderful things there and some of my stories, my backstory, and the Self Care for Caregivers, which is a practical guide to caring for you while you care for your loved one, is at all your favorite stores. You can get it at Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and I'm just really blessed in that
Oh,
it's everywhere.
so
So
incredible. Yes, because you have a big publisher. And
I
I just,
do.
yes. Okay, so side note, can we hear how that came together? Are you willing to share about that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, because it's why I believe that we're all doing what we're meant to do, and
Mm-hmm.
even sometimes, because with social media and things like that, you're trying to get the word out, and you just feel like nobody's listening, and but you
Mm-hmm.
just keep going. So I was on Instagram, which is a great format for me because it's bigger, it's smaller than a blog, but like bigger than a tweet.
Mm-hmm.
And someone from Adams Media, which is Simon Schuster, saw me and loved my writing style and came to me and said, "Would you write a book? Would you like to write a book?" And I went, "I would like to write a book."
Incredible. You
Yeah.
were. I always like to say, what is meant for me will not miss me. And that did not miss you.
Oh, I
That did not
love
miss
that. What's
you.
meant for me will not miss me. Oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I am grateful and awed and so blessed because people try to find agents or book publishers,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Mm-hmm.
came to me. And I am thrilled to be working with them, and they did a beautiful job on the book, and I'm just so happy.
It is. It's a beautiful job. Congratulations. And we'll have
Thank
to
you.
go, yes, send everyone to go read it. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a joy and fun for us to finally meet
Mhm.
face to face
I
in
know, it's
person.
just been
Yeah.
wonderful. And again, thank you because I see how much hard work you do, and I know you're busy. And, I really do believe it makes a difference. I really do believe that, caregivers are silent, they suffer in silence. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, when we put this material out there, I think we're saving one caregiver at a time. I really
Mm-hmm.
believe that. I just
Yeah.
had the other day, I was sort of like, oh, why am I have to do another Instagram after,
Mm-hmm.
somebody tweeted me. They tagged me in a tweet, and they were really exhausted and tired, and
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the rope. And I just tweeted back and said, "Oh my gosh, I see you. You're amazing. Your story's amazing. And I think you're amazing." And she tweeted back and said, "Oh my gosh, I so needed that." And I thought to myself,
Mhm.
there it is,
There it is.
like
Yeah.
there, he said, "You really helped me today." And I thought, I did,
Mhm.
it's so,
Mhm.
I think that the work that we do is
Mhm.
really important. And even
Mhm.
though we every song we sing makes a difference, I mean,
Yeah.
everything we do makes a difference. And even though we don't know what that difference is, I think
Right.
it's important. And I thank you for your work, and
Thank you.
we're helping people. I really believe that.
Yeah, it's the community for sure, and it's an honor to be a part of it, and we'll just keep doing our work, right?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much.
All right. And will you take care? Anytime you need me, I'm here.
Sounds good. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.